Why have we come to earth? Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Well, good morning again, everyone. It's such a privilege to be here. I've always loved this church. I don't know if you realize you have one of the most beautiful buildings, I think, in the whole movement. It's so physically beautiful. And the energy, when you walk in, you can just feel the peaceful energy. And you have such a tradition of seva here. You know, you're known for that, whether you know it or not. And other churches talk about it. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that you have so many people selflessly serving. Well, I was, another thing is that I had the privilege of officiating Reverend David and Cynthia's wedding a couple of weeks ago. So that was a little, I knew about it ahead of time, but a lot of people didn't. It was kind of a surprise, and so it was a wonderful thing happening at the New Thought Conference. So that was just a wonderful privilege to do, and we congratulate them. And the two lovebirds. So when I went online and saw that the topic this month was the 4 agreements, I was so happy because, you know, this little book I've had for many years, and it's very powerful. It's very powerful. I get it out every year or two and go back over the 4 agreements because it's very simple, yet very profound. And it never gets old. It's one of those things that you pick it up again and you go, oh, that's right. I remember now how important those agreements are. So it's a wonderful thing. And actually, we were having dinner with some friends last week, and I was telling them that we were talking about the 4 agreements today, and we talked about them at the dinner table. It's a wonderful thing. It brings up discussion, talking about the agreements. It's so simple. It's easy to work with. It's so simple. And I know that Reverend David and Reverend Sue gave a beautiful explanation of the 4 agreements, but I just want to go back and review very quickly. Don Miguel Ruiz, who actually Andy and I met a couple of years ago at Agape Revelation and sat at the table with him. And he's this little man. He's very small, with a sort of an impish smile, and very quiet and unassuming. Just a very sweet man, and actually a good dancer. We had an opportunity to see him dance. He's a very good dancer. A very beautiful wife. He talks about when we're children, we become domesticated as we learn the ways of the world. You know, we're taught by our parents how to fit into our family, to society, to the world. As children, we're very inner-directed. We want what we want, and we want it now, and we're hungry or we're tired. But then we begin to learn the rules and how to please our parents, and we become domesticated. And when we're children, we learn the beliefs of our family unconsciously, don't we? We learn them, and they become a truth. They become the lenses through which we see the world. We don't even question that. We believe that it's true. So, and sometimes the things that we learn are not necessarily our own truth. We learn to be pleased by seeking the approval of other people. We learn to want to make our parents happy, make our teachers happy, make other people happy. And sometimes it takes a whole lifetime to unlearn that and to come back to what makes me happy, what resonates in my heart. How can I be authentic? And I was always one of those people that wanted everybody to like me. So that's impossible, right? Because not everyone's going to like you. But so we begin to learn, and the 4 agreements are a way to break out of that dream, that domestication, and get back to ourselves and rediscover who it is that we are. The first agreement, I love the first agreement. Be impeccable with your word. It fits in so well with our teaching, doesn't it? Because we know the power of our word. When we speak our word, we create. And we learn not to speak our word in vain. We don't want to say I am and put anything negative after it, because the power of our word is very powerful. So being impeccable with your word. The second agreement is to don't take anything personally. And boy, this is a tough one. This can be a tough one, can't it? Especially when we learn that when we make our parents happy and other people happy, they like us, or we get approval from them. So when you're outer directed, you're always looking at what other people are saying and thinking about you to get feedback. So if you're not going to take it personally, that's a total paradigm shift. And what Maurice says is that we all live in our own dream. We all have our own experience. Even 2 people in one family have a different experience. And so how can I judge you if I'm looking at you from my world, not yours? And how can you judge me and criticize me because you're looking at from your own paradigm, from your own dream? So don't take anything personally is a big learning tool, I think. I remember reading years ago that no matter what, whenever anyone criticizes you, it is always about them and not about you. That just blew me away. I didn't know if I could believe it, but it is true. The third one is don't make assumptions. We always assume so many things he said, have the courage to ask. Reverend David told us a wonderful story that I think he told last week about how he had a fight with Cynthia and she didn't even know it. Because he assumed they were having a fight, and she's like, I didn't know. Everything was cool with me. So we assume lots of things that we don't stop and check out. We don't stop and ask if it's true or not. And that there are no victims because we're responsible, even if we misunderstand. So always do your best. That's the agreement that I always sort of glossed over. I really got into the first 3. I really enjoyed exploring the first 3, and it's like, okay, always do your best, okay. But in talking about it this week, I've really been thinking about it and mulling it over and thinking about it. It's a good question to ask yourself, what is my best? And our best changes from time to time. Because perhaps if you're a morning person, your best is better when you first get up in the morning and you're fresh. That's how I am. Then at the end of the day when you're tired and it's at the end of the day. Your best, it changes. And if we accept that we're always going to do our best, whether we're healthy, whether we're under stress, then there's no judging ourselves, because we know we're always doing the best that we can at the time. And if you follow the first 3 agreements, your best will get better, because you'll be following those basic tenets that make you aware. In order to do your best, we have to be awake, don't we? We have to be awake. Because when we're asleep and unconscious, and as Ruiz would say, in our dream, we don't know if we're doing our best. We're just reacting. Where if we're awake, we're much more present. For me personally, my best is better when I take care of myself. When I take the time to honor and take care of myself. My best is definitely better when I meditate every day. No question about that. Because I'm more aware, I'm more peaceful, I'm more authentic when I go back every morning to my roots and sit and am still and connect with the one. Because when I do that, I remember that I am one with everything. And it's easier for me to do my best. So I realized that when I was exploring this, that's something that I've learned about myself. And I think it's true for all of us. When we take time to go within and center ourselves, our best is easier to access. So Ruiz says you don't need to try real hard and do your best and stress and strain and work at it and, oh, I'm really going to get it right this time. It's not that. It's very simple. It's in each moment. You just do your best. Because when we try so hard and stress and strain, we deplete ourselves. And there's a great story in the book about a man who wanted to become ascended from his suffering. So he went to a Buddhist temple and found a master and walked up to the master and said, "Master, if I meditate 2 hours a day, how long will it take me to ascend?" And the master said, "My son, if you meditate 2 hours a day, you might ascend in 10 years. He said, "Okay, if I meditate 4 hours a day, how long will it take me to ascend?" And he said, "My son, if you meditate 4 hours a day, it may take you 20 years. And he said, "Well, why? Because I'm spending more time in meditation." He said, "It's not supposed to be a stress and strain and working at it. You're supposed to be living your life and enjoying your life. So it's something that comes naturally. When doing your best, you will sometimes take action. You'll be directed to take action, not because of the reward, but because it feels good to take that action." I'd like to read a little section here. "Doing your best, you are going to live your life intensely. You're going to be productive. You're going to be good to yourself because you'll be giving yourself to your family, to your community, to everything. But it is the action that is going to make you intensely happy. When you always do your best, you take action. Doing your best is taking the action because you love it, not because you're expecting a reward. Most people do exactly the opposite. They only take action when they expect a reward, and then they don't enjoy the action. Okay, let me figure out how I can make some money, and then I'll do this action. And it's coming from that joy of living. It's what's calling to us. That's what doing our best is about, is listening to that feeling that we get when we do what we love. And I think as we get clear with what our best is, it involves compassion and love, doesn't it? It has to involve compassion and love. There's a wonderful story I heard recently about the Dalai Lama, and he was visiting the United States or someplace, and he was in a hotel room, and a little Mexican woman came and knocked at the door to clean the room. And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here, I'll come back later." And he says, No, come in. What part of Mexico are you from? How did you get here? Who is your family? Where are they? Tell me about yourself. Tell me, how did you get here? And so he sat and talked with her for quite a while as he saw her. How many times are we in a situation where people are in service jobs, like at the grocery store or something, we don't even see them? Why? Why do we do that? Here's another human being there, and he made a connection with her, and he showed her love and compassion, and she felt heard. And the next morning, when he opened the door, there was a line of people outside his door, all waiting to come in and talk to him. That's an example of doing your best, isn't it? You know, Wayne Dyer, as you know, recently made his transition. And I've been thinking a lot about Wayne Dyer because, you know, he touched so many millions of lives. And he did his best. He's someone that did his best. He grew up in an orphanage and with foster parents for part of the time of his youth. And so he had a tough upbringing, but he always had that sense of himself. He always kind of listened to himself. And he came home one day, they said, from school and was upset because he had overheard the teachers saying that he was a scurvy elephant. And he didn't, you know, he was upset because he didn't like that. And the foster mother went to the school the next day and said, I don't understand this. He said, you said he was a scurvy elephant. And they said, no, we said he's a disturbing element. So he was a disturbing element, stirring up things even when he was a child, choosing his own way, not necessarily wanting to make everyone else happy. And he went on, he wanted to be a teacher. That was his mantra. So he went on and studied and became a school counselor, then became a college professor and an author of textbooks and had a successful private practice. He was doing really well. And you think, wow, that's awesome. He started out as a foster kid, a poor foster kid, and he ended up as a college professor almost, on the tenure track with a great private practice. But it wasn't enough. He realized that that wasn't his best. He wrote a book called Your Erroneous Zones. And he started, the book started selling, and he wanted the publisher to send him on a tour to go around and talk about it because he wanted more and more. His goal was to get people to learn about this wonderful process and this wonderful awakening, and they wouldn't do it. They said, no, if you sell out the first printing, that's good. We consider that a success. But it wasn't good. It wasn't his best. So he quit his job, which he said was very difficult to do. He said, I grew up poor. It was very hard for me to quit my job because I have to support my family. But he trusted that inner instinct. He quit his job. He bought up all 2,000 of the books that were left over, put them in his trunk, and went around the country and promoted his own book. He went to small radio stations and television stations and talked about it, and people would call in and talk to him. He started selling more and more and more books. He ended up living his dream, being on Johnny Carson's show. He became well known, and that book is one of the best-selling books of all time. It sold something like 35 million copies. Wayne Dyer, in his lifetime, wrote 40 books. 20 of them were on the bestseller list. He made more in the year he left teaching than he did in all his previous earning years. And he did that again and again in his life. He was a man that did not listen to the opinion of others, but answered to the song in his own heart and followed that and taught that very passionately his whole life. I just got through reading his memoir that was published after he died, which I highly recommend. I Can See Clearly Now. You can tell it's kind of put together quickly, but it talks about his life and the things that he learned, and it's very powerful. So his best kept changing, and he took action. Action is about living fully. Action is about living fully. Inaction is the way that we deny life. Inaction is sitting in front of the television every day for years because you're afraid to be alive and take the risk of expressing what you are. Expressing what you are is taking action. You can have many great ideas in your head, but what makes the difference is the action. Without action upon an idea, there will be no manifestation, no results, and no reward. How many times have you had a brilliant idea and never did anything with it? I have. I mean, I can remember times when I had a flash, an inspired idea, and then I listened to that little voice inside my head that told me all the reasons why that would never work. So doing our best is about taking a risk, stepping out in faith. The other three agreements will only work if you do your best. And Ruiz is very clear that you should not berate yourself if you don't follow these, because we're not going to be impeccable with our word every day. Right? We're just not. There's going to be times when we fail. Sometimes we're going to take things personally. Do you ever take things personally that someone says about you or to you? Sometimes we're going to take them personally. Sometimes we're going to make assumptions without checking it out. We're not always going to follow these agreements. But if we always do our best, we just pick ourselves up the next time and do it again. And not spend time thinking about how we can never get this right. That through practice and through setting our intention that we're going to live these four agreements. It allows us, because we're about the, if you're here in this center, most of us are about the process of transformation. Allowing ourselves to transform higher and higher, to let our vibration go higher and higher. And that's one of the reasons that I was so inspired by Wayne Dyer. Because just when you thought he had it all, he would transform again and again and again. And he was so open and clear to spirit that his books became an automatic writing. He would sit down in his office with a yellow pad of paper, and it would just flow, that easy. He was doing his best, and it didn't take a lot of strain and stress. It just, he allowed it to flow through him. So don't judge if you fail. As was read in the reading, we have the power to create heaven or create hell. We have that power in our lives. And so what will you choose? And what I'd like you to do is think about what your best is. Just let it resonate with you this week. When you have an idea or you're thinking of reacting in a certain way, how can I do my best? How can I be impeccable with my word? How can I not take personally something that has come directly at me? And remember that they are living their own dream, not mine. How can I be courageous enough to ask rather than making an assumption and asking and saying, is everything okay between us? And then to explore what is our best and to do it every day in a beautiful way. And as Damien so beautifully read at the end of this book, maybe we cannot escape from the destiny of the human, but we have a choice to suffer our destiny or to enjoy our destiny, to suffer or to love and be happy, to live in hell or to live in heaven. My choice is to live in heaven. What is yours? Thank you for being here this morning.